my name is Arslan Abbasi and welcome to another Founder's Diary. Today we have two fantastic guests. We have Jane Pritchard, Tracey Longbottom. Jane, Tracey, tell me about yourselves. Tell our audience a little bit about yourselves and Forsyte. Jane, would you like to go first?
So we are a dynamic team who essentially, this is the polish and the charm and the charisma of the team, and I'm the nerd who basically sits in the garden office building 24/7. And Tracey sometimes lets me out and takes me out into the world. I'm on day release today.
Yeah. And Tracey, what about you? What are you about?
So yes, I am heading up the commercial side of Forsyte. I've been in legal tech sales for about 20 years. I love dogs. I love vintage clothing. And what else would you like to know?
Probably in that order. Sometimes the dogs have got vintage clothing.
That's cool.
That's a new thing, right?
That is a thing.
You have dogs as well, Jane, don't you?
I have two. I am not only passionate about social justice. I was a legal aid lawyer. I also support any underdog in any situation. That's why I support Liverpool as Everton as a football team. It's like not the Liverpool. But I have a dog who is a rescue dog as well.
Got you.
So a Romanian rescue dog.
That's interesting. So you rescue dogs as well. You mentioned to me, I think you were a river scientist as well. Talk to us about that. What is that about?
So I do a lot of different types of volunteering, whether it's as a lawyer or as a environmental scientist. So the Southeast River Trust contacted me when I was chairing up the park organisation, Improving Parks in Merton, and said, we really want to solve river pollution. Can we come and sample the Beverley Brook? And they tried to get hold of Merton Council, they didn't reply, they contacted me, I did. And we've been doing that for probably about 5 years now. So every month we get into the river, we count invertebrates. The first time we did it, we found pollution and we were able to track it back to where that had happened in the Beverley Brook. So it's like real life impact on changing the planet.
That's fascinating. And Tracey, tell us about you outside work. What are you getting up to?
I am nowhere near as altruistic as Jane, and I swear she has more hours in the day than anyone else. I listen to her and I'm tired. I'm going to sound really vacuous now. Like I said, I love vintage shopping. I'm a bit doggy mad. I've got a 5-year-old daughter, and most of my time at the moment is spent building Forsyte with Jane.
Yeah. So with Founder's Diary, what we want to do is really go into why did you create this? Who did you create it for? And talk about the kind of the nuances of the product. Risk assessment been around for a while. It's not a new thing, particularly for financial services. What made you say we're going to build one for law firms, and how did that come about?
You go.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it is a new thing because I don't think anyone ever has done a risk assessment through pure technology. They haven't looked at it and said, what are you trying to do? We started at the end of the journey and said, what does a law firm need to know from their risk process, not how to fill in a risk assessment. Anyone can fill in a risk assessment and they just pick up what they used to do on paper and they stick that into a form or they stick that into a product, but it's not changing the way that they think about risk. So I'd say risk assessment is, the way we do risk assessment is a new thing. Yeah,
I would like to say it was totally our brainchild, but honestly, we have been in the industry a long time and inadvertently people were crying out for this. They were asking for all sorts of other peripheral answers to problems. So over the last 10 years, the regulatory landscape in the UK, specifically for law firms, has really changed. COVID did somewhat speed up the adoption of technology, specifically in the IDV world, open banking, the same for things like source of funds, source of wealth. It wasn't really the answer to the problem. And I think a lot of law firms were asking us questions around how to understand data, how to read data, but really, I hope we've got to the root of the problem, which was actually there's all of this data and there's all of this technology. How can we help you understand that data and build a solution that answers the problems that you actually have?
But that's the difference, right? Because a risk assessment, like you say, has existed, but that was just ticking boxes or answering questions. And exactly what you've said, this was about what do you know that is relevant to the risk and how do you assess risk? If you do that, that's different. It's entirely a different way of thinking about risk for a business. And for us, like Tracey said, we saw that lots of different solutions were adding just more and more data, and law firms weren't changing what they've done. So even though law firms have, and the regulated sector has advanced in how they're using technology, none of that has joined up in it. If anything, it's just made it worse. Because the more solutions they have, the more fragmented it is, the less they know.
Yeah.
Some of the law firms that we were talking to when we were thinking how we solve this, have 5 or 6 different solutions, and none of those solutions provide a joint risk assessment. They even do their risk assessments across different providers.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like 3 different providers providing you with 3 different data sets, giving you 3 different risk assessments? I mean, I wouldn't want to be in that firm when they're audited.
Yeah, and look, law firms have tried themselves to address this issue. So what was largely a paper form and a paper file when I started doing this 20 years ago, stick it on the front, is it high, medium and low? That probably sufficed for quite a long time. And then since then, lots of firms have tried to build it into a case management system. They've built it in a Microsoft form. But all of those things are basically digitising what is a manual process, and it's recording risk. It's not stopping risk. And Jane and I are super passionate with Kaylee and the rest of our team to really address that risk before it becomes a risk, not just to record it after the event.
I think like for us, forms are the F word. Because people are, it's the thing, right? I mean, I literally, most places I've worked, I've said, please stop using a form, because all it is a little bit of conditional logic, putting some information in and it's dead. It's gone, done in the dust. And people also, it's predictable. Mm-hmm. You know how to answer a question to get the response you want. And one of the biggest changes for law firms is to think about, forget your risk assessment form, think about risk assessment, think about follow the risk. I know you're passionate about that as well, Arslan, to think about what are the flags you're looking for, what is the risk you're looking for, not how can I fill in a risk assessment form based on how I did it in 1789, and just putting them into a nice user interface. No, please.
Yeah.
No,
I think one of the problems that I read was that the firms that had risk assessments that were partially compliant or just weren't inadequate was that the form itself was not tailored to their firm-wide and what their actual policies are meant to be, based on their geography, based on who they're attracting. So they're just downloading templates and just going off that. And that template is super limited. The answers aren't set, or they don't have risk scores. And you know how I feel about risk scores, which we'll get into it in a second. But to me, when I imagine a risk assessment tool, I imagine the first element needs to be dynamism, it needs to be dynamic. It needs to capture the data needs to flow like a river into the platform. So did you have that in mind, or when you were building the product, what were the first few elements that you were like, absolutely must have these things?
That's interesting, because that was one of the first design principles when we were sketching this out, was do we offer some of these services ourselves, like IDV, or do we say, and this is the truth, take the path of least resistance, use a well-embedded, very good product solutions, and say, what can we do to optimise that? And I'm glad we did, because it is working in our favour at the moment.
It's really important for us that we harvest that data. So when you talk about a data lake and the data coming through our platform, we're not interested in taking a copy of your client's passport. We're interested in taking all of the metadata. So not just what your name is and whether you've got biometrics, but all of the level of data beneath that. And then we take those results, and then that's how we form our assessment of your risk. And if we just literally provided a linear journey across that, you would have to get to here before you could get to the next place in your journey. And we know that law firms struggle with that. We know that's part of what law firms struggle. Well, we know that's what part of all businesses struggle with, is that you have a risk assessment or any process that is just far too linear. And it's a straitjacket. Yep. And whether you're doing that when you're winning your case or whether you're doing that in your risk assessment, that's not going to work. I think the other thing that's really important about risk assessment, you say about it being dynamic and suitable for the law firm, and like 50% of all the law firms that were not compliant, it was all to do with their risk assessment. But it's not just about your law firm having a dynamic risk assessment. It's like Arslan, if you're completing the risk assessment on a matter which is conveyancing, that risk assessment should be looking for different risks than if you're doing a risk assessment on a private client case or a commercial case. It is different depending on the matter and the client type.
And the answers should be different.
And who you are, right? So you can't just have a risk assessment that's dynamic. It has to be a risk assessment that's dynamic to who you are, who your client is, and what kind of matter you're doing. And that is, again, part of, you can't do that in a linear journey, because you learn about you and your client as you go through that process.
Let me intervene here. So you both mentioned something about you could have had the EIDV, the KYB, the other stuff in there, and you chose not to. I speak to big firms, from banks to law firms. Some of the bigger firms says, I don't want another thing to log into. I want it to capture the data. I want it to work in the background and then make sense of it on my platform. Yeah. Have you thought about making it an API-able solution, or is it a standalone platform? What's the kind of servicing like?
The whole solution is built on being able to ingest data and to expose data. We have both worked with law firms for a very long time, and it doesn't matter what size or volume you are, nobody wants to rekey data. So yes, we do have API integrations with a significant number of vendors in the market, case management, practice management, IDV providers, data solutions. We also have built, or Jane and her team have also built an amazing solution that gets around the need for API. And that's one of the really nice benefits we've had to building this technology in 2025 is that you don't necessarily need an API integration in order to collect and make sense of that data.
Like some of my first roles in technology were looking after integrations, and my first job was always to go in and be like, oh my God, this is all broken. How do you make this work for interoperability? You know, and so that was my first part. So we one of our founders, who's the tech side of our business, he has built the most incredible universal APIs. So we are one of the few people that I know in the market. I mean, in fact, I actually don't know anyone else who does this, where everything you do in our product universally, you can have if you want. So we are open to that, but we're not like, this is the bit that we expose to the outside world, and this is all how our product works. So if you did want to take some of our data and use it in your own tools, you could do. But also we sit horizontally across the market, and we literally have plotted every type of application. If a law firm needs 5 core applications and one of them is compliance, that's us across that market. If you change your ID provider, you try different solutions, happy days, come in, we will speak to them. We will ingest your data from case management. We will pull your data from an AML solution. We will push your data into your document management system. That's our job. We harvest them. Yeah. That is our job.
I think it's really important to note that historically people have thought that is a huge undertaking in a law firm, because historically it has been. I've sold many practice management systems, and actually the thing that people are most fearful of is taking the data and putting it somewhere else or building an integration. So we're very fortunate. We do have a bit of an unsung hero in our business who is amazing at technical integrations and really understands the importance of the way that data flows. So we were very, very cognizant of the fact that it needed to do that. And if it doesn't, like it absolutely works as a standalone solution, because we wanted it to fit anywhere in your tech stack. But the reality is most law firms, even a sole practitioner, will have one element of any of those things.
Yeah. I think what we're noticing as I'm talking to you, and I hope what my audience is noticing, is that you're 2 experts. Like, you know your market, you know law, you know legal sector. And I've spoke with other founders who aren't from our space, and they're coming into our space and they're making guesses and trying their hardest to work with the partners and get those integrations on board. So I think that's really impressive about you. Talk to me about, when did you start Forsyte? How long did it take to get your MVP up? And what were your financials like? How did you kind of get the money to get this going?
We sat, this is the 2 M's basically. I'm Miro Board M and Tracy's Malbec M. So we sat down early on in the year with bottle of Malbec and Miro Board. I need to give Tracy a bottle of Malbec to get her near a Miro Board. We drew this out, and we said, like, blank page, which is where you should start with, but we've got some ideas about how this could work. So we did that earlier on this year, and we were all doing different things. We were having this, we very quickly got into a proof of concept.
Were you both in jobs
yes.
at the time?
Oh, yeah. We were doing this like on the weekends at the time of doing this. So this was our weekend work. We built a proof of concept. It took us maybe about 4 or 5 weeks to get that into something that we could show externally.
Was that a Figma flow, or was that an actual
No, this is
product?
a proof of concept, yeah. So this was into an application.
Okay,
yeah.
wow.
So about 4 or 5 weeks into an application where you could press a button, move through it, and show you that flow. We actually, I know lots of businesses, and I've used Figma, etc. in the past, but by the time you built Figma, you could build the app, right? So we were
that was another big design decision.
We were moving.
There are a lot of designers no, we need to build the Figma flows. We need to build the skeletons.
But what we did do, as soon as we had the proof of concept, we then did do the most important part, which people now still say, I mean, we know why we did this, and we're very grateful that we did, because we then got a UX specialist in. Good. You know, we said we are not building anything into our actual application until we consider high-level UX across it. How do you get from beginning to end? What are the core architectural concepts of how a user will experience it? And our product is so different, right? We were shaking the tree quite hard. So it was really important, I think, that we sat down. And how hard was that to build out 10 key components of how you would build a risk assessment, because it's not a form, because there's no forms in our application, right?
We were very passionate about a non-linear journey. Yeah. That was very difficult to articulate to somebody how we wanted that. And it was probably quite difficult for them to work with us, because we had a very clear vision of this is what we wanted to do, and we were super passionate. about having a product that doesn't need a lot of training. That's where, in my view, that's where every bit of technology falls down. If it's highly complex, yes, you can be solving a complex problem, but it shouldn't be complex to the user. So at this point, we were bootstrapping it. We were like, what money can we throw into the thing that we think is and feel is most valuable? So the brand, the UX, all has a very similar feel. It's black and white and grey and yellow, and we don't really deviate away from that.
Yeah.
And at this point, we were, to your point about how are we funded, we were exploring every option. We've both worked in VC, didn't really aspirationally want that for ourselves. We looked at some PE funders, which was kind of all right, but to your point, it was quite like bitty. There would have been a few people, not all necessarily from industry. And we had come across an investor, a potential investor that I've worked with in the industry previously, and approached them for funding. And I don't know if you want to...
Yeah, I think for us, the most important part about the choice you make as a founder about your funding is you need to be on a journey with them for 5 years. So we had we'd built a business plan. We looked at where we wanted to be along that journey, and we were almost, it wasn't just us going out to pitch. We got our seed legal, we got everything ready, we got all our figures ready. But for us, our pitch deck, it was more than that. It was about who did we want to work with, and who did we think, let's be fair, would want to work with us, because we are not your typical founders, right? Yeah. We are two really strong women who know our minds and our domain and want to work with specialists in legal. That might put some investors off. Yep. So we found people with ETI who had instantly got our vision, understood why we were doing what we were doing, and also wanted to be in on that journey. So bringing people in who understood how lawyers thought and could give us the space and the autonomy to be able to do that was kind of it was really not a very hard decision, was it, once we got to that?
So we are now part of a bigger group, ETI group. They were attractive for a lot of reasons. So they're a managed service provider. They have about 150 law firm clients. Aspirationally, we were very well aligned with them. So one of the things that I've known from working with some of their directors for a long time was that they are super passionate about the way that they treat their clients. So they have all of their mobile numbers on their email signatures, as an example. And I've been out with them where they've taken calls at 11 and 12 and 1 a.m. And that really aligned to us. There were also some very logistical things, like they already had the operational setup to make us go faster. They had Cyber Essentials Plus, they had ISO accreditations. Yeah. And because we want to service the whole market, we need that credibility.
Yeah, also would have taken a year to get
At least. Yeah. And we want to go as fast as we possibly can. We are super agile. We work as many hours as there are in a day.
Yeah.
And that to us was the quickest route to get there, with people we felt very aligned to, who shared similar values to us.
So that was, so we did our proof of concept. That took us about a month. We then got investment. That took us out of the process a bit because there's a lot of negotiation in that investment. We then quit our day jobs on the 27th of June, I want to say, this year. And then we went hard into MVP.
Amazing.
And we're onboarding clients.
Yeah.
And where are we now? November?
Yeah.
And
we've got some sizable clients.
Yeah.
So what are you forecasting for September to September, let's say?
So for us, it's very much like we've seen, we have a particular type of client that we thought when we first went to market that would be our ideal client. And we knew that for us, we are really passionate about making sure that the SME sector has smart technology that is something that isn't compromised. Mm-hmm. Most big groups can sell to the small end of the market because they know that they're going to compromise on what they take. And we were like, whether you're one person or 1,000 people in your practice, you shouldn't have to compromise on the technology.
You want enterprise tech for everyone.
Enterprise tech for anyone. Yeah. So we started off thinking, we would be in the smaller end of the market, and that would be where it fitted, anyone up to maybe 1,000 users. And then we found that actually we solved the problem that all law firms had.
Just an existential
this piece of tech that didn't exist, so that we are, we just have, so essentially across the whole of the market. For us, though, we want to go where we can make the most difference. But we are super punchy. We have a BHAG that is incredibly ambitious, and next year we will essentially be taking it by storm, I would hope, the market.
Revenue-wise, it's difficult, but I would want a minimum 100 clients by next September.
Yeah.
That's,
and I don't think that's
quite reasonable, actually.
Yeah.
That's quite a reasonable target. And based on what I've seen in the market, based on your traction, based on how you're doing on PR marketing, would say that's super achievable as well. In terms of go-to-market strategy and route to market, so you're big on partnerships, Tracey and Jane. You're huge on that.
Yeah.
As well as direct, presumably, because some of your partners are your competitors. Like I work for First AML, obviously, and we were getting requests all the time from law firms about risk assessment. Kaylee would refer a bunch to us, and they were like, "We need a risk assessment."
Yeah.
We were like, "We'll build it one day." They built it one day, and they actually have it now.
They do,
and they're your key partners.
We're not competitors. They have their risk assessment in what they did to add to what they do as their main tool. Yeah. For us, so they refer clients to us. So when you want a risk assessment that's holistic across your practice, and there are no identity providers in the market that do matter risk assessments. So we're not about doing just an AML risk assessment. We are talking about everything that is risk across your practice from the beginning to the end. So the guys like the guys at First AML, but all our other providers as well and our partners, we are symbiotic with our relationship. We only partner with people who partner back with us. Yeah. Okay, these are not like tags that we put on our website. It has to be reciprocal. This has to be reciprocal. We have to be evangelical about your product and likewise. So that's why we go into these partners. We go into these partnerships because together, and literally we'll go on a call with these partners and improve what they're doing for their clients. Or don't partner with us because we're gonna wanna show your product to clients and we're gonna hope that you're gonna do the same for us. But because we fit together, right? And we
do GTM specifically. We have spent a few months building out partnerships because we know that will see us through. We know that a lot of the partners that we already have and have great relationships with their clients who have a need for this. So yes, we have built actually quite a mature partnership model out in, I think, quite a short space of time, and that's really bearing fruit for us now. We get probably at least a dozen inbound inquiries through channel already.
And that is very difficult to achieve.
Very difficult. But really that's not our main focus. We have a direct sales team, growing team now. Someone else who is from Domain, a great woman called Rebecca Thomas, who's also from industry, super tenacious, very hungry.
She makes those amazing videos.
She makes amazing videos. She's not scared to hit the phones. She's a bit old school. Stop sending another email.
So you have a partnership strategy, which is working out great.
Yeah.
You have a sales route, direct outbound sales.
Yeah.
And you're also doing marketing as well. Now, which of these is central, the most important, the most fundamental to your go-to-market?
I would say, I feel like we've built a brand, and it comes back to
brand has been from day one. Yeah, for us, we wanted people to know who we are
as quickly as we could. Yeah. So we walk in a room now, and somebody said to me the other day, "You've been doing this 6 months now, Tracey. How many people in this room do you reckon know who Forsyte is?" And I said, "Probably at least a third." And it's actually, we've done it in quite a short space of time, not to blow our own trumpets, but people know who Forsyte are. They're not like, "Who's this brand I've never come across?"
They do. Yeah.
And we've been bold with the marketing, but I almost feel like that's established now. And now it's about cranking that up. I've said all along, we've turned the tap on quite slowly to make sure that the product is exactly where we need it to be, that we're not necessarily getting people to kick the tires when we don't know what they need.
Yes.
So we've had some great early adopters, some very large early adopters as well, who have been great and pivotal in just making sure that it's exactly what the market needs. But for me now, yes, partnerships is, again, it's relatively mature for a young business. It's kind of looking after itself. We've got a great head of partnerships in, Sean Edwards, who is an ex-practice manager, again, from law firms, because we think domain experience is so important. You've got to speak the same language. I'm a direct salesperson, so obviously I'm going to say that's the biggest channel for me, and it's the biggest opportunity. You speak to enough people. This is a problem throughout the industry. It's in our control then, right? It's in our gift to be able to explain ourselves, in our hands, why this is a good solution.
But I think also from the product side, if you're onboarding at the moment with us, you're going to get me in your law firm sitting next to you, watching you use our product. I'm not going to train you how to do it because hopefully that's not my job. The product's job is for you to jump in and start using it. That's how it should work. But for me to sit next to you, so I'm also going to be looking at how everything else in your practice joins together. So right now, we are also really heavily investing in the law firms that use our product, which means that those law firms are talking to other law firms and saying, I've got this thing. The law firm next door in the same town's got the thing. It's really interesting how when you're passionate about solving that problem for the law firm and you make yourself present for that law firm to give you feedback, they pass your feedback on.
Yep.
You know, so that's how this works, right? Tracey will be out and we'll be doing webinars and we'll be talking to other partners. We have clients who call us up just on the periphery, or the types of clients that call us up, and we're saying, you're not ready let us help you with something else. What we're doing here isn't quite the right thing for you because you're not quite in our domain, but we'll help you with something else. And then that, again, for us, we believe that one of our key philosophies is like give first, always give first. So for us, if a law firm's got a problem and thinking, is that the one you're solving right now? We're like, that is not, you've solved, that's not what you need. You need these people. So we
can help with all of this.
We've got this big partnership where we'll say, call Arslan, or call Kaylee, or be like, call X. So that is really for us. We are also signposting our law firms.
You're not just a vendor, you're a partner, essentially.
A full partner,
Yes.
Look, this is an industry based on relationships, right? It's very hard to win a law firm over, but once you have, there is a whole host of trust that they will give you if you are accountable. And we are super accountable, we are super available, we're super accountable, and we want to deliver solutions that meet their requirements. We haven't come to the market and said, what do you need? We've spent months asking law firms if this is the right solution. Does this need tweaking? How would you like this to work? And we also bring a lot of domain experience ourselves, which is why, where possible, we recruit from within industry. Because I almost think like tech's the easy bit. It's almost like managing the culture in a law firm of a new application. Pretty much any tech you can buy, you can switch on tomorrow. Some of the enterprise software, it's not that. It's managing the culture shift. It's managing people's expectations and explaining why it's a good solution for them and why it's going to make their lives better. And we're really passionate about that.
Yeah, they do require a little hand-holding and help with change management. You're 100%. There to help them. You're not just there to sell to them.
Exactly.
Couple of things. So I always look at branding and marketing and partnerships as like imagine you have a bucket of water and you put a little food dye in it. That food dye initially is like a little thing, but it will start, diluting the water. Eventually the water will be blue from that one little blue. And that's what you've done. I've noticed throughout September to now, and praises to you. You're doing amazing work there. And what I love, another thing about you, and I like to talk about this, is hyper-focus. That singularity of risk assessment and law. Right? No other distractions, no EIDV, no screening. Talk to me about that hyper focus. Was that part of the strategy, or are you guys just that good at commercials?
It's our strategy because we're not new to this. So, for me, with some of the big brands that I've worked for and led product at, I have learned, I didn't wake up one morning and think I knew what I'm doing with marketing or with product. We've worked together and we've made countless errors and we've gone through that process. And we have learned on that journey. So it's that time where you're like, look, we've learned, we've been here before, we've seen this. We need to be hyper-focused. People need to understand why we're here and what we're doing. I have to say, we have been criticized for that as well, because people are like, well, you say you're doing risk assessment. Is that enough? I'm like, yes. Risk assessment is enough. For us, it's not like we won't for always be what Forsyte is about. But right now, actually, for us and for us to help law firms, that is our key problem we're solving. So to go out and tell the market, what problem am I solving? Not that I'm black and that I'm yellow and that we've got a B, but what problem are we solving? And so that's something we don't compromise on, isn't it? Like, a law firm needs to be able to know, I know what Forsyte do, I know why they do it, and I know why Tracey and Jane want to do it. Not everybody agrees with that, so.
We do work very well in this sense as well. And let's be honest, we are always being challenged by something shiny over here, or should we do this in the product, or should we go into this new region, Australia being the obvious one at the moment. And we are really good at checking in with each other and saying, right, come on, let's be accountable on this. What are we trying to achieve? And there's so many firms that we can help in the UK with this very specific problem right now, especially with AML, the AML regime moving to the FCA, that it's hard to stay hyper-focused, but we almost need to be successful.
And funnily enough, I think by focusing on that, somehow you'll unlock new markets that,
100%.
Because you just mastered that one environment, you unlock all the other territories like accounting is a perfect, CSPs would be perfect. Somehow you're selling to Maltese firms because they're CSP accounting and law in one. And their risk assessment isn't that different. Are you finding that 0 to 100 is pretty easy for you because of your expertise of what you're saying? Because a lot of founders say that 0 to 100 is a very difficult, challenging part. But from the outside, it looks like you're smashing it.
The zero part, I would say the zero part isn't the hardest part on being brutally honest about that. The 0 part is the hardest part because we are not coming from outside of the domain or even in the domain and thinking, we've got this itch to scratch with the product. Will this work? We didn't not involve law firms on our journey so far, right? Yeah. So I've been working, I'm like, of a considerable age. I've been working with law firms now for like 30 years. And so for me, and I was a lawyer, I practiced law firms, I've transformed law firms. So for me, everything we do in product, everything we do, even before we even got it into our UX, when we had it on the Miro boards, those designs, like you say, will you tolerate another URL in your application stack? We went to law firms and asked these questions. Yeah. We didn't sit in in my garden shed.
Anecdotally think, will they do this?
So we had a really clear plan about how many law firms we need to be involved in our pipeline at that stage. Our early adopters have been crucial on that journey. I think my only frustration with Tracey is I was thinking, I'll do a few small firms, and then Tracey goes and has a few conversations, and the next thing, we've got larger firms and bigger firms. But how can that not be a really incredible process when you are asking for that diverse feedback from all the different personas in those law firms who've got that problem? I think it's really important that you just decide who are the first 10 types of law firm that you're going to help. Mm-hmm. But if you can understand who those personas are and how you help those people in your product, then the next 100 of those are, it's not the challenge. The 0 to 100 is less of a challenge.
Yeah, I think if we were from out of domain and we didn't really deeply understand the problem, then yes, it would have been harder. I think whether it was look or design, the fact that we invested heavily in brand and UX has really worked in our favour, because the SaaS playbook tells you not to do that. Get a solid product and then worry about those things when you're launching. But law firms just don't buy like that now. They don't want to spend £500,000 CapEx cost on a bit of software that they might want to change in the future. They don't want to buy something that doesn't look nice for their users to use. That has been a historical problem, which is why there's so much legacy tech that remains in law firms, because it's functionally great, but it's quite unuser friendly.
But I think also that the agility that we have at the moment is the best part of what we do. So we very Kanban in how we build our product. It's now, next, later. That can change in a week. That can change during the week.
Client demand as well.
So we're not there a lot of the bigger brands in the market at the moment. They're transforming their tech stack. They're trying to reinvent how they do manage data for LLMs. For us, that's all a fresh, brand new tech stack, which means we are super responsive. Which means if we need to push something out and bring something back in, we can change our toolkit round.
It's built on the right infrastructure.
It's built on the right infrastructure, and Tracey, she was very happy to rub my face in this yesterday. We went out to see a client, and then after we see a client, we might sit down and have dinner with that client and really get into it. And I'd be like, I don't want to do this thing, Tracey. I want to do something super cool instead. And this is the bit where Tracey would be like, but I just need this thing, because that's the most important thing that X number of law firms will need right now, and just tone it down. Bring it down, Jane. And so we did it, and I had to sit next to Tracey, really smug, where the law firm told me, actually, we need this thing. And I'm looking at her going, oh my God, it's the thing that Tracey told me. And that is the challenge. Tracey and the team will bring in, and we're talking to our clients, our engineers are sitting on calls with our clients, and we will, I kid you not, we will have at least 10 new, incredibly insightful ideas coming straight from our clients, probably a day, maybe 10 ideas a day. And I'm putting those into our Miro boards. And so the biggest challenge we have is opportunity cost, because I don't care if you gave me 100 engineers, I wouldn't build great kit with 100 engineers. Diluting that context. Having that small, agile, super focused team and working out which 10 things we push out every week, that's our biggest, that's almost like the most important thing right now, isn't it?
It is. And look, this gets batted around a lot, and there's some quite fiery conversations in the business, but we are laser focused on what is going to be the most beneficial to a law firm. And even if that is something that's perhaps not the most exciting, shiniest tool, sometimes if a law firm needs it, then that's the truth of it. We need to build it. So yes, we have a great tech stack and a very aspirational product, but we also listen very, very closely to client demand. And that's the thing that drives our product prioritization.
We can often be this product in their tech stack that we are, like Forsyte is slick and new tech. And then, but we have to understand how everything else in that ecosystem works. And that is the key to our success, really, is that we know what DMS you're going to be using. We are going to ask you what PMS you're going to be using. We're going to ask you which different AML providers you've got, and we need to put that jigsaw together, and then we need to all of a sudden seamlessly, you don't have a jigsaw anymore, you just have a beautiful picture. And that's what we need, that's a part of our job. Tracey and the team, we consult, we talk to the law firm about what that looks like, and then when we are in there, we're basically elevating that. And so, but we can't transform their Frankenstein tech stack overnight. We have to absorb their data, look at the right solution and how we do that. Law firms say to us, especially like more enterprise level, how should we use this? I'm like, you tell us your story.
And what's your road? What's their roadmap?
What do you want? What's your roadmap? How do you want to this? Do you want to start in Forsyte? Do you want to start in your PMS? What about your CMS? Who's your AML? How do you do it today? If we scrap all that, how would you like to do it tomorrow? So most SaaS products, right, they would just say, just here. This is where you start. But for us, we give people like 3 or 4 choices. And that way, literally, Tracey and the team can go into a law firm and say, which one do you want? And they'll be like, that's us. That one there, that's us.
That scenario, that context. Is it centralized? Is the law firm?
Yeah, exactly.
Is the compliance doing it?
Absolutely, exactly, right? Like, so look, for some law firms, they're passionate about their fee earners doing it. Other law firms...
They won't let anybody else touch it, right? Those fee earner ones.
And then other law firms are like, there's no way my fee earner is touching our risk assessment.
I love that contrast between
so like, we're like, but that's okay. So we were we're in another firm history. We're like, what's your vision of this?
Yeah.
Listen first.
I want to touch on this because look, what really bothers me about legal tech is that 9,500 firms in UK are small SMEs, less than 5 employees. Why are we not servicing them? Are they just not law firms? Are they not good enough? Don't they make enough money? They make enough money to afford a low risk assessment tool. And risk assessment is one of those things where you don't need to be enterprise to need it.
Exactly.
Right? You need it.
Yeah, you need it.
You need it ASAP as well. Considering as well, because high street firms are at greater risk of audit because of their clientele are high street individuals, migrants, and very kind of people from high risk setup. So one thing I wanted to ask is UX UI. So I've seen hundreds of risk assessment tools or tools with risk assessment. Some I told them to stop demoing to me because it was and I honestly told them stop. I don't want to see any more. The UX UI had like 3 tabs of risk. Like there was just so much clutter and nonsense in that. And then the tool itself had so much capabilities. You could plug in Moody's, you could plug in whoever you want. And then it was like, okay, this is too complex. I don't want to see it. Get out of my face. You guys have such a clean setup. You have icons for risk assessment. Talk to me about the importance of UX UI, how you strategize for those. And did you look at the other tools, or how did you know to build something like that? How did you?
So we definitely don't look at what anyone else is doing. So, I mean, it started with like, I know we joke about the Miro boards, but like it's one of my passions is like getting something out of my head and drawing it in a Miro. So
you built it in isolation rather than research.
Yeah. So I've worked across the market on the product side as well. Yeah. And in my previous role had like 5 designers in the team. So product designers, so kind of have that instinct that I've learned. I'm like the bit of everything that I've learned from product. I'm a lawyer, I've learned from the developers.
And you've seen hundreds of tools.
And I've seen all those tools. And for me, the most important thing for us is we weren't ever going to copy anything. We want to be like the pioneer. We are a pioneer. We are not a follower. So this is also like the most important thing. If you can put something in front of Tracey Longbottom and say, do you know what that means? How would that work? And Tracey understands that context straight away, and so that is my key. Then the other thing is, like we had Kaylee Smales, so I was like, Kaylee, we're thinking that this is how we could change how risk is done, but I'm concerned that this is too future proof. This is like not now. The curve between what someone is using now and this is too. You've got the F word form, and then you've got this. Yeah. How do we move? And so we made sure that the people who would be invested in using it. So we got that feedback. So no, we never looked back
at what we're doing.
And the most, like one of the most important things that we are passionate about this as well is people was like, oh, these people are doing this over here. I'm like, let them do it. Got this big market, please. Like we are not crushing other people to do our thing. Yeah. We're doing our thing in our lane. Like you said, super, super laser focused on it. Great. If someone else has got a great idea, you know what? I'm like, a real fan of great ideas.
I'm a fan of people talking about risk assessments, because if you're the only person in a market selling something or proposing a solution, you've probably got a really terrible idea.
Yeah.
Right? And if anyone else is doing it, we all have to up our game and we all have to have the best solution that is right for the law firm. So yeah, we're aware of other solutions. We know what they do. We've been in and around legal technology for a lot of time. But did we? Yes, of course, we did a competitor analysis on functionally what do things do, but we never did an analysis on UX UI.
Yeah, what does the homepage look like?
We started with a blank piece of paper and years of experience of, let's be honest, complaints from users around the things that they really liked and the things that they really hated.
Yeah.
And it was probably the biggest challenge, taking a really complex problem that is feeding from lots of different systems into a UX that immediately people know what to do with. And I think we've been quite successful.
But standardizing components, right? So how would you know what that means if you looked at our risk assessment? And, we do argue over icons. So we do have...
Yeah, I argue about icons, those minor details as well.
Right, so we argue over icons.
I even get obsessive if I see the same icon used somewhere else.
So we have an icon library, so everything we do, we have that, we have it standardized. And then literally if we are going out of that or anywhere out of that, but again, this also comes from, you could say we're sitting here talking to me and Tracey, but it's our engineers on the team, the product people in the team. So we have engineers who are product engineers, and I'm we have engineers who are product, and I'm product who's engineering. And in that Venn bit in the middle, everyone's responsible for everything they touch in the app.
Yeah.
So, traditionally you have the designer, product designer, who's responsible for that, but we all are responsible for it.
So you're designing the future iterations.
Exactly. So if you're in the application and you're an engineer and you're I think this should work better like this, please tell us.
Yeah.
But you can't work in isolation and just code in our platform. Yeah. It is not acceptable.
I agree to that.
It's what the heck?
Have this argument and discussion with RegTechs all the time. Particularly, they bring me in to meet their CTO, their product lead.
Yeah.
And I always ask them, how are you building this? Where are you building this from? I always think you can build something in isolation if you're the expert.
Yeah.
If you have 30 years in the industry, you've seen stuff. You don't need to necessarily look at what everybody else is doing and copy them. But if you're a product leader or a CTO and you're completely shutting down the world outside you and you have no idea what's going on, then I believe you're building on the wrong foundations, because you don't necessarily know your market that well. And by the way, there's so many companies that outsource their tech to a tech team that doesn't necessarily know lawyers, doesn't necessarily know how law firms work. So, and I see these posts about founders saying it's good to bring people from the world outside of the domain because they can bring fresh ideas. No, they can't, because they don't know where to create a case. They don't know where things should be.
Have the concept of a client.
But I think,
exactly.
I think the difference is if you're a domain specialist, that is the kind of old school way of thinking. But for us, we have to rethink every day. But if you're involving your clients in that, it also annoys me, Arsalan, when people are the future is not involving lawyers or bringing lawyers on the journey. So I think, again, really, really important for us.
We were speaking to some super tech forward lawyers yesterday, and you're just not going to get any better feedback than that. People who are actually really passionate about using the best technology, but have the context of how difficult it is in the real world. So really, I think that has been the key to us probably making 0 to 100 look relatively easy. Yeah,
you've made it, from my perspective, it looks like you're doing amazing, and congrats on all of that. From a female founder perspective, I find it really incredible that you guys are just so on it. You're so proactive. Talk to me about the challenges you faced to this point and the challenges you're facing now being a legal tech, RegTech female founder.
We've probably got different perspectives on this one. I was a lawyer for a long time, and then a digital consultant, transformation consultant. And I had this startling night and day experience of moving into tech as a senior female leader. People treated me with so much less respect. It was as a lawyer, she was a client. As a tech leader, she doesn't have the same respect. So I found it really challenging. I mean, I enjoyed the challenge, but I only enjoyed the challenge because it meant that I could bring other people on the journey with me and help other people who were joining and perhaps were younger than me, whatever, and say this, it doesn't have to be this hard. But I think you should never assume it's not just about female founders. It's about anyone from any diverse background.
Yeah.
To have VC, I mean, a very few women, founders who get VC, who make that, but also just ethnically diverse. For Tracey and I are essentially, it is so ingrained in what we do, equality and diversity, but you have to proactively seek that.
Yeah.
When people say, "Oh, you can't have female engineers," I'm like, "Well, how have I just hired someone?"
Isn't it incredible?
Yeah,
I didn't go out looking specifically for female engineers. I just looked for engineers.
Good engineers, yeah.
And everybody got. I think it's the bias that you might have. I think Tracey and I I'm really proud of the fact that we basically don't have that subconscious bias. So for us, when we see people for what their talent is today, but what their values are going forward. So for me, it's a very long-winded answer of saying I found it eye-opening, and I think the way that people perceived me as a tech leader perhaps didn't have the patience for me that they would have had if when I was a partner in a law firm, which is frustrating, isn't it? It's annoying, but
and just on that, before Tracey, I just want to comment on that. You have a beautiful story of your struggles, the challenges, and you worked in two, three very male-dominated world. So you naturally had to develop a tough skin, and I think you'll make a great leader now, having gone through that. Realizing how to talk to your team, treat them with equity and equality. I think that's great. And well done on that. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
Seriously. So, and Tracey, what about you? How would you describe your kind of?
It's probably the one thing that I've been a bit shielded from, and we talk about this quite frequently. Look, tech, sales, legal are all very male dominated, and I've been in all of those things for the last 20 years. I honestly have never, and we've spoken about this quite candidly, I've never felt discriminated against. I've always felt that being a woman in that scenario is quite empowering. I've never really faced any discrimination. If anything, I think it's been a bit of a superpower for people to be like, oh, she actually does know what she's talking about there. But certainly, like the glass ceilings in the roles that Jane has taken on, like sales has always been a meritocracy, right? So it's not the same. The same is not to be said necessarily for being a lawyer. And I think that's why we've faced very different challenges. I am very thankful. And as I said, we do have a male co-founder as well. He's our technical co-founder. He's a little bit shyer than we are in these kind of engagements. So we are...
we should shout Julian out.
Yeah, so Julian's our tech co-founder. He's amazing. He has all of the same values as us, and I think we hire for values. Yeah. We hire specifically for, do you believe in the vision? How do you feel about your colleagues? How will you treat them? Are you collaborative? And the rest can kind of be taught, like, in my view, and we talk about that a lot as well. Like, skills can be taught relatively easily. Any tech can be taught. But if you really care about the products, if you have the right values, if you work hard, then get in our business, basically, because we're super passionate about that. Do I think it's Jane and I's superpower now? Yes, I do, because people comment consistently, almost on a daily basis, around us being female co-founders, female tech founders. But I would say it would be a lonely place, probably doing it on my own without you.
I'm not sure I could. And I started my career in criminal defence in the East End of London, right? So that's about the toughest. I used to say, if any lawyer can make it through a training contract in criminal defence, you can be anyone, you can do anything in the world, right?
Sky's the limit,
because it's
living
like,
on what, like 9K?
Yeah, but it's also just like the hardest environment, to do that. But I think like doing this and having to represent yourself, we talk about having imposter syndrome, having to represent yourself coming from where we've come from. We didn't just jump out of Oxbridge and decide that we could solve the world's problems. We fought down like from the ground up and solved those problems every day in, day out, and drove and pushed and pushed and pushed, and then realized at some stage, like, what the hell? Why don't we just take the reins? Like, why we're always fixing someone else's stuff? Why am I always like coming to the table and solving someone else's problem and making someone else, giving someone else a solution? We do actually deserve to solve those problems for ourselves in the market.
I think it took to that point. I think maybe when you say, would I have done it on my own? Probably not. So maybe that is a self-limiting thing as a woman. Like, I definitely wouldn't want to do this on my own.
It's a huge undertaking to start a tech company on
100%.
Even a man like this. It's equal. I would say I always treat people like brains, and I always look for characteristics rather than projections, characteristics are like, are you humble? Can I have a chat with you?
Exactly the same
Are you creative and curious? So guys, look, we're out of time, but I'd love for us to carry on and keep talking.
Thank you.
Any final statements you'd like to make to the camera?
I also like Arslan, just dealing with you and being able to collaborate with you. The beauty of that is we don't always have the same idea and we don't always agree on the ideas, but our ideas, we always come away better informed and in a place to help the different people that we'll interact with. And so, I really respect what you're doing in the market, and I think it's really important for us as well that we've had your support in this as well.
Yes,
so thank you.
I would agree. Thank you.
I just want to say to the camera, I knew we were going to work together because, Tracy, if you look at our followers, connections, requests, and you look at our how many we have, it's just like when you have 1,000 connections in common, you're going to work together. Yeah. So we'll likely see more of each other, and with Alex as well, amazing cameraman. Thank you so much, Kaylee, as well, for being here today. Guys, we got a webinar coming up actually, so stay tuned for that. We're going to talk about risk assessments, firm-wide client matter and risk. So stay tuned for those. And thank you guys. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, Arslan.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cheers.